divorced your father, you went to live with him, and you became pregnant. And
when I was 18 and at college, I became pregnant.
And your mother forced you to fly back to her and have an abortion. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then she had a party with all these people at the abortion clinic for your abortion.
Yes, that was the purpose of flying me back there as opposed to just sending me money to have it. It's not as though I couldn't have had an abortion in D.C. where I was going to college. She wanted me to fly back for the purpose of having the party as well as the abortion.
Oh. So this was like your coming out, your debutante.
That's what they referred to it as. This, now you're a woman. Now you're part of the sisterhood.
Did you think twice about having the abortion? Did you want to? Did you think it was just, well, it's what I have to do? How did you think about it?
I fought against it very hard. She threatened me, and that's why I eventually went along with it. But I actually went to see a counselor. I wanted to do an adoption. I was never pro-choice. I always thought abortion was terrible, and I never, ever wanted to have one. And I thought, well, if I can present her with this adoption plan, then she'll have to go along with it because that's my choice. And my boyfriend at the time agreed with it. And I had a whole adoption plan laid out, and my mother was just absolutely violently angry, screaming at me. She was going to cut off my money. She was going to not speak to me. She was going to do whatever she could to get me to have an abortion, and reminded me that Christians couldn't be trusted, that they hate women, that they want to hurt women, that all they would do was hurt me, that they'd never accept me being what I came from. And I was, to be honest, I was afraid of Christians. I wanted to be one, but I was afraid I wouldn't be accepted because of the family I came from.
So much for choice, right? You wanted to make the choice of adoption, and the pro-choice people said you don't have that choice, right?
Exactly.
Nice.
So how did you become a Christian? What happened?
That was actually last year. Just there were a lot of things adding up over time. I had depression, a lot of post-abortion symptoms, depression that never went away. I struggled with trying to numb my feelings with drugs and alcohol sometimes. When I was younger, I had cut myself because I wanted to hurt. I felt ashamed, like that I didn't deserve to live because of what I'd done to my baby. I felt like when I got married and became a mother, I felt like I didn't deserve to love my children. I didn't deserve to be happy. I didn't deserve to be a grown-up married woman with children like I'd always wanted. I felt I don't deserve that. I'm not good enough. And finally, I realized that all of my values were already Christian values anyway. My husband and I were atheists, but we were very conservative, very family values people. And I thought, well, if Christians are right about all these things, maybe they're right about the spiritual stuff too. I bought a Bible. I started reading it. I hadn't read a Bible since I was 10 years old. I started reading it, and I decided that it was true, that Christianity was right. I prayed. I felt something that I now recognize as the Holy Spirit, and I started going to a church. And I found a church that I'm comfortable with, a church family that I'm growing up in, and my life is just amazingly different.
Awesome.
And God has released you from that guilt and depression?
Yes, I know I did. I know that the things that I've done a lot of things in my life that were wrong. Everyone has sinned in some way. But I feel that I've been forgiven, and that now I can do work for God. I can try to right some of the wrongs in the world with His help and with His power.
Does your mom still work in the abortion business?
I don't know. The last time I spoke to her, which was months ago, right after I became an active pro-lifer, she was very angry with me. She said that she was leaving her job in gynecology practice and that she was going to try to get back into the abortion industry to counteract what I was doing. Wow. And she said she was going to have to move because I would send crazy pro-lifers after her to kill her. So,
well, I hope you're in prayer for your mother.
I am every day. Every day I pray for my mother, for the doctor she worked with, for everyone who worked at her clinic, whose name I can remember, for everyone who works there now, and for everyone who works in the abortion industry in general. I pray for them every single day.
Yeah, Abigail, the beautiful thing that Jesus really does forgive. I'm reading from the notes here, and I noticed that said you were reached by some praying women with gentle conversation, and yet they had some very gory graphic material on hand.
Yeah, there was. I think those two things can go hand in hand. I don't think it's unchristian to show the truth of what abortion is and what it does.
So God had his hand on you for a long time, I think.
Yeah, obviously he did,
She
and
wasn't feeling like the mom was feeling.
and she's not sold out. I mean, she didn't abandon all her values. I hear tales like this about like your mom, and I've talked with, believe it or not, I have talked to people just like what you described as your mother, and these people are living in hell on earth. They have created a hell for themselves, and your mother may have the feeling that she's so far gone that nothing can help her, and that even God can't forgive her for what she's done. And that's a conversation, that it may go in one ear and out the other, but it may not. You never know when you plant those kind of seeds. If you get a chance to talk to her, say, Mom, if you're thinking that you've done more than what God can forgive you for, that's an egotistical way of looking at things. You're putting limits on God that don't exist. And, she'll probably rebel at you and scream at you and call you names, but that doesn't mean that it didn't soak in at some level and she won't think about it. But
so she's right now missing out on her relationship with her daughter and a grandchild, right?
Two grandchildren. I have 2 sons.
And a relationship with her son-in-law. But you're saying one of the things that you put on here is that these people not only were lesbians and occultists and so forth, they were virulent man-haters. Yeah. They hate men. And we saw, again, that same thing with this chapter here in Denton. That girl, when they interviewed her in a paper, and while they disbanded the chapter, she said, we didn't know we were getting into this lesbian deal. And she said, we don't hate men. We want to advance the cause of women, but that doesn't mean you have to hate men in order to do that. Mm-hmm. But these people have somehow bought into that idea that the only way to love women is to hate men. And we see a lot of that.
Do you still have a relationship with your father?
No, I don't.
Wow.
He's over the years with the man hating and the feminism, she basically just drove him into isolation. He spent all his time in his office and didn't really pay attention to what was going on. And he started to drink heavily, and at this point he's so far gone with alcohol I think he feels ashamed of himself, and he doesn't want to see me or have anything to do with he doesn't feel like he deserves to have grandchildren.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't want to sound flippant about it, but if I was married to this woman, I'd probably be drinking pretty heavily.
Do you have siblings?
No, I'm an only child.
Wow. Well, listen, Abigail, I really appreciate your coming on and telling us this information. And, I know it has to be difficult for you, and I know you're probably hurting over not having a relationship with either one of your parents.
Well, Mark, let me just say one more thing. The same thing you said about the mother, she can do it for the father, too. My father was an alcoholic, right. And I am the young preacher that spoke to my dad and got him saved, where God literally forgave him, and 2 days later he passed away. Wow. But my dad was in that same situation where he drank so much he just didn't think God could ever love him.
He's just too far
And
gone.
it's the same thing you said for the mother. I just want to say for her, she can say for the father,
well, that's
too.
true for everybody.
Yeah.
It's not just true for her mother and her father, but it's true for everybody. But in this case, it's particularly true because for what she's telling me, from what I hear of her mother's probably by this point got this attitude, and that may be why she's rebelled against you, Abigail, is that you have what she wants to have but can't, or thinks she can't.
That did seem to be what happened. She said the last time I talked to her, and I tried to tell her about Jesus and the difference he's made in my life, and she said my voice sounded I just sounded like a completely different person. I sounded happy in a way she'd never heard before since I was a little girl.
Wow.
And she was really angry and really hateful after that, and then she hung up, and now, she doesn't take my calls.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's because, again, you have what she wants and can't afford to admit that she wants. But that's what the situation is. Well, again, Abigail, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for telling all of that. I know it's difficult, and thanks for all you do.
Yes, thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Absolutely. We'll be talking again, I'm sure. Bye-bye.